Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the E53 ANZCAR Cup Championship for the chase round here at Kansas Speedway, Kansas, America. Joining me tonight is, as a usual feature now, as we've finally got a commentator that's finally willing to sit in with me, Jono Hancock. How are you going, Jonathan?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. So, Kansas tonight. This can be a really tricky track.
Yeah, we'll be on tyre. The tyres will just fall off really quickly here, I feel, because of it being a high-speed track and the banking here. The tyres are just going to get eaten away. So drivers will have to be very cautious on how they're going to make their tyre life last.
Yes, the banking here is very steep, as we saw just in the intro there. You've got a very high angle of banking degree as you're coming around some of the corners here, and that can really cause problems. It can also throw you off as you're going through those corners as well. When you're up to 20 degrees progressive banking on these corners, you can really lose the back end extremely quickly, and that's going to be a ever-present problem for the drivers tonight, of course. From what we've heard, we're looking at around about 10 laps before the tyres start to fall off and drivers start to notice the real big difference in degradation, but everybody's been saying that they're able to keep the tyres running for a bit, but it's going to be a tyre-dependent race, not a fuel-dependent race. So qualifying is definitely underway, and we've got a few people here tonight, but one of the people that aren't joining us, unfortunately, is last weekend's winner, Dave Douglas, who's at the Gold Coast Indy race. Not Indy, Gold Coast. Showing my age, I call it Gold Coast Indy. But he's at Gold Coast this evening, unfortunately, so he won't be racing. So that is one more person knocked out of the chase.
Yeah, so that means that only two tonight will end up being knocked out that are racing. So who's your pick for tonight? I'll probably ask you after qualifying that question, actually. Sorry.
Well, it's always a tricky thing. Honestly, I think Jason Martin's in for a good shout tonight. He's just put it a good time in. He's just put it up on pole at the moment. And just speaking, Jake Miley's just gone a slight bit faster. We're looking at times of 30.4 at the moment. So, this track, you're looking at around about that 30.4, that low, sort of high 30.4 mark. So generally 30.5 is a really good lap here. Your average lap speed is around about 31. And some of these guys are dipping into the low 30.4s at the moment. So it's going to be interesting to see who manages to attach the pole position tonight.
Yeah, it will be. I would like to see the guys from last week back it up maybe with a win for Edward this week, because he's in the chase, so maybe we'll see a win for him this week.
Yes, well, stranger things have happened. I mean, there is a chance he could win. Jokes aside there to the sponsor. But look, it definitely a good chance. Riley Curtis Design have been working very hard. That team's working very well. Of course, Riley himself is actually in the chase, so there's two drivers looking to get into that tonight. Michael Skurlock's out there with Stephen Williams, of course, and again, two guys that are in the chase in a team together with Illusion. So there are a couple of sort of relatively strong teams, but I think the strongest team out there tonight is going to be Mitch Motorsport with Danny G, Josh Micklemore, and of course Jason Martin, three of the top drivers in the championship. Of course, we lost Danny G last week because he was busy at Bathurst, but we've still got Micklemore and Martin in for that chase. So I think there's going to be a lot of teamwork tonight.
Yeah, a lot of people will use their team to draft off of, just a lot of different things. So we'll see what happens throughout the night and how people not so much take advantage, but use their teammates to their advantage.
Well, that's the thing, is motorsport is a team sport at the end of the day. It's one of those things that, we do tend to ignore it a little bit because, in motorsport you want to be the fastest and you want to be ahead of your teammate. But you've got your teammates around you, as we just see Foster just coming to the track now. So looks like he was waiting for a little bit longer in qualifying, just hoping that maybe a bit of cloud cover comes over the track and gives him that magical moment. But teamwork is essential in motorsport, and especially on the oval circuits where you are looking at drafting, where you're looking at working with your teammates to just get into positions, and on these high-speed ovals where you're doing up to 290 kilometers per hour, almost 300 kilometers per hour, there is going to be the draft effect in that situation. Of course, it's a slightly shorter oval, it's not super speedway like Talladega, but you still have that draft effect. So teamwork it's only going to help you get through. So I think we're going to see possibly them working together.
Yeah, and talking about drafting, I wonder if we'll see any motors go pop like we did last week when the guys were drafting. We saw one motor go bang last week, so I wonder if we'll have any repeats.
Yes, of course, Ryan Jones's teammate. Gosh, Brummer's completely gone now. I can't remember the name. But his engine went bang last week, and you've got to be careful following these cars because heating is always a problem. You can easily overheat one of these engines and make it go pop. It's a very simple thing to do. It's just missing a gear. There are so many things that you can make mistakes on, and Kansas, I feel, is one of those tracks where it does punish you quite a lot. I wonder if we're going to see people struggling with pit lane entry like we did last week. As Edward Foster manages to pop it up into third place there. Good lap from him. Currently Jake Maloney's in first with Jason Martin in second and Ed Foster third with Skurlock in fourth. Riley Curtis is just on his first lap out, so I expect him to go a bit faster on that second lap. But it is possible that we're going to see a few people struggle here because it's very easy to make a mistake here, and this track can really punish you.
Yeah, I feel like once the tyres lose their, we'll call it sleek, they're going to have troubles with cars moving around with the draft too. So we'll see a bit of slide and maybe a couple of cautions, who knows.
Yes, as Darren McKenzie and Riley Curtis are out there. Darren McKenzie managed to pop up to 9th with Riley Curtis 11th. And Joshua Carroll-Walden just coming into the pit lane now. Managing to pop up in 10th. Good showing for JCW there. So we've currently just got, I think that's everybody, but Danny G that's qualified now. So everybody is, I think, is done pretty much. So I don't think we're going to see any more cars out there changing positions. So I think we'll just go through the positions now. So in first place we've got Jake Maloney with a fantastic lap of 30.4. Second place, we have Jason Martin. Third, Edward Foster. Fourth, Michael Skurlock. Fifth, Josh Micklemore. Sixth, Norman Clark. Seventh, Matt Danson. Eighth, Matthew Cluett. Ninth, Darren McKenzie. 10th, Joshua Carroll-Walden. 11th, Riley Curtis with Bruce Smith in 12th. 13th, Daniel Stevens. 14th, Robert Mason. 15th, Stephen Williams. 16th, Michael Latterer. Tristan Koch is in 17th. 18th is Ryan Jones. Probably a bit disappointed with that lap, I imagine, for Ryan. And starting at the back will be Danny G down in 19th place. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be an interesting race tonight. We could be in for some interesting options in there. A few people out of position, sort of slightly lower down than you expect them to be. It's odd to see Matt Danson in sort of the mid-pack. Usually he likes to start right at the back or right at the front. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. But Jason Martin and Jake Maloney putting in some fantastic laps there.
Yeah, some really good qualifying laps out there. You see him come around for that first one, you always think, oh, they're not going to have as good as the second one, but you got to remember the oval, you got to build your momentum up. So the second lap is always going to be the quickest.
Yes, that's it. And, you know, on these sort of slightly shorter ovals, that can absolutely be the case. So as we switch over to the race server, we will head into the highlights package of our last round of the ANZCAR Cup, the first race of the chase at Talladega Motor Speedway. and Dave Douglas might make a pounce here. He's going to try and make a move. Down the inside he goes. Dave Douglas making the move on Danson. This is very, very close by, and he's getting pushed by Ryan Jones. So Dave Douglas has just got through. Great job for Dave Douglas. Ryan Jones helping him out enormously there. As we come down, and the white flag's going to come out as we come onto our last lap. But is everybody going to make it on fuel? As Ryan Jones has just got in front of Danson now, and this is going to sort of not help Danson too much. Danson going right to the outside. He's right on top. He's got the Illusion car behind him. Dave Douglas has got the 3 Riley Curtis design team cars working in unison to push him forward. Ryan Jones is pushing Matt Danson forward as well. So this is going to be a very close finish.
Might be on for a photo finish here.
It looks like it. Danson is very close here as we come through. We're coming up to the finish line very shortly. We're on the tri-oval, but it looks like Dave Douglas might have it here. Dave Douglas is down on the inside, and so close. Is it going to be? Danson goes round, a huge incident on the end, but Dave Douglas has taken the victory. Edward Foster second, Riley Curtis third. Huge incident for Matt Danson there. He just lost it going into just across the start-finish line. We'll see if we can see what happened there in a moment. Danson pushing forward, and it looks like Danson's just gone. He's just lost it slightly, gone up into one of the Illusion cars, gone around, huge crash across the finish line, but Dave Douglas is the winner of the Talladega race here for ANZCAR. And welcome back to warm-up session for the race. So we are back, and as you saw, Talladega was a very eventful race for a few people there, and we did lose a couple of scalps quite early on, unfortunately, with Norman Clark and Chris Purnell. Losing both of those guys. Chris Purnell, obviously quite a big one to go out that early on. I think Chris Purnell was not expecting to go out so soon, and most of us were expecting him to stay a bit longer. Unfortunately, Illusion had a pretty terrible evening, especially with that early incident. And we did lose a couple of these scouts, so we lost Norman Clark, of course, Danny G, and Chris Purnell. So tonight, as I say, we've lost Dave Douglas, unfortunately, just because of the scheduling conflicts, which do happen, unfortunately. But tonight we have Martin, Foster, Williams, Cluett, Curtis, Stevens, and Skurlock all in for the chase. So 2 positions tonight, so only 2 places going to get knocked out tonight. So it does make the chances of getting through a little bit easier. But as we saw last time out at Talladega, all it takes is an accident up front and your race can be ruined, like Norman Clark's was. He was just unfortunately a bit of a innocent bystander in that early accident.
Yeah, and it's easy enough for you to get cleaned up in an accident here or any oval racing, because you're going so quick and you've got to try to lock it down, but you also don't then want to slide and lose it yourself and end up in someone else. So it's very much a balancing act on how hard you hit that brake pedal when you see someone losing it in front of you.
Well, this is it, and as we saw last week as well, we had a few people having problems going into the pit lane. Um, uh, Stephen Williams, I think he had an issue of just overshooting the pits, and a few people locking up as they went into that pit lane entrance, and costing them positions. And that's an always ever-present danger, of course, in oval racing, because these cars are relatively heavy, and their brakes are not that good. Well, when we say they're not that good, they're very good compared to a road car. But because these cars are going at almost 300 kilometers per hour, and obviously being an oval race, the brakes are absolutely stone cold. When you press them, there is absolutely nothing there, and then all of a sudden they bite. And it is so easy to loop around the rear end of these cars.
Yeah, I always like to err on the side of caution when coming into pits. It may cost me a little bit, but it's worth it when instead of putting the car in the fence or spinning out and losing even more time. And I believe that, tonight we'll probably see a few incidents coming into pits because drivers get caught out a lot of the time by, over time, the tyres wear, as we talked about in the practice session, and they very much wear here. And you can practice going into the pits here, after 5 laps, and your tyres will be different when they're falling off after 10, 15, 20 laps, So it's all about practicing after your tyres are falling off coming into pits, I believe.
Absolutely, and the other thing as well, in practice, you can practice a longer run, of course, and then come into the pit lane, but you don't get the same effect because you're not in the draft as much. So being in the draft, of course, you're going quicker, but you do lose a bit of downforce, so you can cause a little bit more wear on tyres, and they can just wear a little bit differently to how you expect them to over a practice session, and that's something that can catch you out as well. It's not an easy thing to do, racing on an oval. It is a different talent, and it's a different set of skills, and it's something that people don't appreciate sometimes. It can be very, very tricky. And again, as we saw last week with Ryan Jones's teammate blowing the engine so early in the race because he was following too closely. Overheating is an ever-present issue. Overheating tyres as well, just tyre wear. There's so many different things you have to keep on your mind. And of course, getting into the pits and getting there safely is another big important step too.
Yeah, and the thing that'll wear drivers' tyres out even more is overdriving the corner and then sliding out of the corner or having to let off and turn really hard.
And that can be a problem here at Kansas. It's very easily to get caught up in a corner, and all of a sudden you're spinning around like a tornado, and then you're clicking your heels together wanting to get home and wish yourself back onto the racing line, and you overdrive it a bit, you cook your tyres, and then it's almost impossible to get that car actually back into a good position. It's so easy to just catch the car out and cause issues.
Yeah, as we see the starting grid start to line up here.
Yeah, so what I might get you to do is just run through our starting order as they line up for position.
Gonna put me on the spot, eh?
Absolutely.
Alright, you go through a few and I'll go through a few. How about that?
Okay, so on row 1 we have Maloney and Martin.
Row 2. Oh yeah, you go. Sorry.
Row 2 is Foster and Skurlock. Row 3 is Micklemore and Clark. Row 5 we have Martin and Clubbert. Row 6 is Mackenzie and Carol Walden.
I can't get mine in order, I apologise.
That's alright. Row 7 is Riley Curtis and Daniel Stevens. Row 8 is Stephen Williams and Michael Latterer. Row 9 is Tristan Koch and Ryan Jones, and at the back, in the lonely last place, is Danny G. Not a bad place to start sometimes, right at the back of the field. So everybody's going to start going around here, just getting the tyres warmed up, getting everything sort of getting ready to race, basically. And this is where you've got to just handle your nerves a little bit. Just get into a sort of get into that mindset for starting this race, because it's so easy to make a mistake. And we've got the green flag, and we are underway.
Dancing quick to
So-
cut down there and start making some moves by the looks of it.
Yes, as ever, Danson just getting into those positions, and a bit of an odd place for him to start in mid-pack. He's not always in that sort of middle pack. He usually starts a bit further back, but in a good position tonight. Foster just cutting down on the inside at the moment, just pushing Maloney out a little bit. On that outside line, we've got Maloney and Martin. Maloney's coming down to cut off Foster from that inside line just so he can't take it at that position. But of course, running that tighter inside line as he's doing can just wear the tyres a little bit quicker. It looks like we've got two sort of slots forming at the moment. Some people preferring the tighter line, and a few preferring that sort of further outside line.
Yeah, we've got a few cars moving in between those lines too, so it'll be interesting to see as we go 3 wide there.
Yes, almost 4 wide as they come through. Just Maloney just having a few bits of trouble just coming through the final turn. He's just having to lift off a little bit, and that's cost him a bit of time, and it's just allowed Jason Martin to get underneath him and get into the lead of the race. Jason Martin's going to be pretty happy about that. He does like to lead from the front. He's got the old Jim Clark method of racing, of lead from the front so you don't get caught up in somebody else's accident.
Yeah, Maloney's definitely was driving up very high up against the wall there. I don't know if he's going for tyre strategy or if he was just overdriving the corner a bit.
And we've got Michael Latterer out the back, and he's just had a big moment just going wide and actually having a bit of problems there, going into the wall and spinning across the start-finish line. So Latterer is just recovering, but we are still green.
Yeah, as he makes his way down the pit road, we'll watch Danson as he comes down right on that white line and cuts up behind Maloney again.
Yeah, they're favouring that inside line. It looks like Martin's pretty happy on the outside at the moment, and we generally see sort of Martin sometimes favouring sort of the outside line, just letting the tyres just roll around a little bit more, just use a little bit less of the actual rubber on there. Just taking up a bit less stress on them. Of course, Danson is no slouch at keeping his tyres relatively rubbered up and in good condition as well. So these two drivers are definitely going to be sort of trying to work out what's the best line to follow at the moment, as Martin just running so close to the wall.
Yeah, some drivers can just manage to run that close to the wall that you couldn't put a piece of paper in between it, but them in the car. But it's just, I guess, when you get comfortable with your car and with the track, you can do things like that, as we see the bottom line forming up a bit more than the top.
Yeah, it does look like the bottom line is the favoured position at the moment. It looks like that outside line is just struggling a little bit for grip. Just sort of close up on Maloney. He was just having to lift out a little bit a few times, but just as he's doing that, he's just managing to get a little bit better run off the corners, so he's having a bit better speed as he comes out on the exits. So he's keeping his position as Danson cuts down again, nice and low as we go across the start-finish line. Everybody's cutting right across the T of the sort of...
The tri-oval.
Yeah, that's it. The tri-oval section there, and really cutting it fine as they go across there. But that's a dangerous game to play as well, because when you're doing that, it can unsettle the car.
Yeah, it can very much unsettle the car and send you around quicker than you know what's happening.
It's a very dangerous game to play sometimes, because of course when you're with these tracks, because they have such a bit of banking, it's when you do go onto that lower line and do go onto the actual tri-oval section, that flat surface, is the car gets out of balance, out of position, and you can send yourself spinning around pretty quickly in those positions. Of course, the best place to do it is the start-finish line, because that's the flattest part of the circuit.
Yeah. There's a lot of drivers obviously running the low line. We're seeing a few run the high line, and like you said, they're getting a better drive out of the corner. So that's the, I guess, positive of being on the high line. And also, I believe tyres will last a bit longer if you're on the high line.
Yes, well, of course, you're going a little bit further around the track as unfortunately it looks like Latterer has actually had to retire the car, so we've lost one driver already tonight, so down to 16. But that high line, you're putting a little bit less stress on the car as well. You're just not quite pushing the tyres as much, not having to turn the wheel as hard. So you get a little bit less sort of lateral loading on the tyres, which is handy. But of course, you're playing with fire up against that wall because all it takes is a tiny bit of slip here or there. And with the dynamic weather system that's in iRacing these days, is you can get a bit of cloud cover coming over from nowhere, and all of a sudden the track conditions change a tiny bit on you and throw you completely off course and throw you out of a regular sort of rhythm.
Yeah, we got dynamic weather and dynamic tracks now, so in iRacing, so there's a whole lot to weigh up compared to when it was run the one line in oval back in the day.
Yes, gone are the simple days, which I think many of us are quite happy for. I think we're pretty chuffed with how it's going. The more realism, as Maloney just gets a huge amount of oversteer there, just going on that outside line, playing with that fire, and he gets that oversteer and just I think slightly touches the wall, and that's lost him a heap of time. He's falling way back behind Micklemore, Martin and Danson. Foster just sitting there in the background, just watching on, just keeping his... I think he's keeping his distance at the moment, just in case anything happens up at the front. He doesn't want to get taken out too quickly in this race. But it does look like possibly the lower line is the safer line to go with at the moment, because that high line is just... It's looking a little bit dicey.
Yeah, like you said, playing with fire, very much so, when you're up on that high line. Just the smallest, you get a scratch on your nose or something, you want to scratch it when you're up there. Anything, tyre slip, like you said, overdriving just slightly and bang, you're in the wall, just like we're seeing right now with the 29. It was just scraping the wall again.
Yeah, just giving it that slight kiss, and unlike tracks such as Monaco, where you can actually gain a bit of an advantage by just giving the wall a tiny bit of a kiss, you don't get on an oval. It does slow you down a touch. But of course, the other thing it does is it gives little bangs on the car. It can destroy your aerodynamics. Of course, it changes the aerodynamics of the car when you start getting dents here and there, and that can cause problems as well later down the track when you're actually looking at tyre wear and things like that. But one of the things to notice on the lower line is there is quite a lot of slide. Just watching Danson as he was driving on the lower line, he's just having to catch the back end of the car a couple of times through the corners, especially going through turns 3 and 4, and that's going to start chewing up those rear tyres a little bit quicker. When you start losing that rear end and it just starts to slide that little bit, you're just going to go through those tyres a bit quicker than you want to, and that's going to cause you problems later in the race.
Yeah, just talking about looking at drivers, I'm still watching Jake, and he was back scraping the wall again, so I don't know if he's having a bit of trouble with overdriving the corner, or if we are lap 16, so maybe his tyres aren't performing as well as he thought they would.
Yes, well, speaking to a couple of drivers before the start of the race, they were saying that the tyres were dropping off a fair bit after around 10 laps.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, yeah, and that does it does seem to be the thing. Everybody is just starting to slide that a little bit more. Just watching drivers and just watching cars, you're just going to notice the rear ends just slipping out a little bit here and there. If we jump on board with possibly Danson, you might just see he's just having to put a little bit of opposite lock on the steering as he's going through some of these corners, just because the car is just sliding a little bit underneath him, and I don't think anyone's completely happy out there at the moment.
No, as a driver, when the car's moving around underneath, you're never happy unless you're purposely moving it around to get through a corner quicker. I know that happens a lot in road racing. As Danson goes underneath, is he going to be able to make a move here?
He's putting the pressure on, but it looks like Micklemore's just got that bit of excess speed that's keeping him in position. It seems that lower line is working quite well, but as I say, the car is just stepping out that little bit here and there, and he's just having to these little extra tweaks of the steering wheel. The high line, though, it doesn't look comfortable out there. It looks like it's going to be a tricky race out there tonight. It does look like people are struggling.
Yeah, it'll be a way up of, do you want your tyres to last longer, or do you want more risk of ending up in the fence, I guess.
It's always a balancing act, and that's one of the things that is probably the hardest part about things, especially like iRacing, or online racing, sim racing in general, is when you're actually driving these cars, you have to do the work of the crew chief as well, and have to think about your strategy. You're generally having to do the work of a few other people, whereas, you know, when you're driving a car in an actual race, you generally got other people doing some of the thinking for you and can actually help out a little bit. But when you're out there on your own, it can be very tricky, as everybody's just sliding around a little bit. The cars are looking like an absolute handful, and we are getting a sort of a bit of a gap forming up from the front pack to the pack behind. Dropping back a little bit is Skurlock behind Foster. He's about half a second behind Foster, and Foster's about 2 seconds behind Mickelmore, the leader at the moment. But these conditions are going to favour people like Danson, like Martin, who do tend to keep their tyres a little bit better through a race. Of course, Mickelmore, who had a fantastic start to the season, I think he made it pretty much halfway through the championship before he got a single incident point, which is an outstanding feat. You know, how easy it is to get an incident point. He again is one of those drivers that can just look after a car and keep it working to an optimal position on a track that can be tricky. As it looks like Maloney's coming into the pits already.
He's gone in a long way back too, compared to how you'd normally enter a pit lane here, so that's a surprise.
Yeah, I wonder if we got a problem on the 29.
He seemed to be catching the outside fence a lot, I was noticing. I'm just watching Foster at the moment. I was on board with him, just watching how little he has been having to re-input the car coming around the corner and catch his slides. He's been very smooth on the wheel out here at the moment. So I don't know if he's, you know, dropped off a little bit to save tyres, or that high line's working for him out there. So we'll see.
I think it's that sort of thing of not pushing the tyres too hard too early, and I think possibly that's what's caught Maloney out a little bit. He's actually just jumped out of the session now, so he's retired from the race, it looks like. One of the strong contenders for this race, Maloney, is actually out already. I think just build up of damage through just brushing with the wall, and just that tyre wear coming in sooner than expected, just catching him out maybe a little bit tonight. Which is unfortunate because he was looking very strong out there. But this is going to help people like Mickelmore and Danson. Of course, Danson's just racing for the fun of it now for these next few races until we get to the final race of the chase, because he's got the golden ticket, whereas these other guys are having to fight for those positions. So Danson just trying to get down on the inside of Mickelmore now, and these two are getting back into that scrap. But you do have to wonder of how hard these guys are going to race, because there is that chase in the question, and there is that position in the championship. Do you want to race Danson too hard and risk yourself losing out on the possibility of getting into that final race and getting the championship? Or do you want to prove that you are better than him in this race and actually beat him? You know, it's one of those things that can be very tricky.
Yeah, so Danson can just come out here and, you know, I think Danson being Danson will want to come and win as many races as he can, even though he doesn't need them. But I think that's Danson's nature, really.
Yeah, Danson likes to win. You know, he's very self-assured of himself. You know, he is very, very skilled, and that's one of the things with Danson is he's got self-confidence. As another car is just dropping down, as Ryan Jones, another heavy hitter, has actually dropped down. He's actually gone into the pit lane for some serious repairs, it looks like. Struggling with the cars out there. It looks like everybody's really struggling tonight.
Yeah, no surprise with the tyre wear how it is, but you can also, maybe Jake had technical difficulties, so, you know, in iRacing we're obviously using simwear gear, you know, to control the cars, so you can have failures in that sometimes.
And of course,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, of course, the beautiful Australian internet is probably our biggest nemesis.
Oh yeah, very much so. We're behind some third world countries over here with our speeds, so it's quite interesting some nights trying to get on iRacing itself. But
Yes,
you
it's
you were
it is
talking.
sometimes.
Sorry, you go ahead.
Sorry, just dropping back actually just to Michael Skurlock. Speaking of connectivity issues, it looks like possibly the gremlins have hit him too, because he was just having a few flashes in and out there, and on my screen at least he was into the barrier and then all of a sudden out of it. But he's dropping back a little bit. He's struggling out there as well. So I think a few people are actually having a couple of technical difficulties as well tonight, which is basically it's makes you feel like McLaren Honda. You know, you sort of having those technical issues. It's a mechanical failure rather than an actual driving failure. And in iRacing, that is your mechanical failure, is your internet dying or your steering wheel or your gear breaking on you. So there are quite a few things that can go wrong for you out there still.
Yeah, like you were talking about earlier, a lot of these drivers now, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of them will have dashes that show them information. I know you were talking earlier about us as drivers having to do multiple jobs on the fly. So in iRacing, you have spotters, like in the real NASCAR, to tell you where cars are around you. And now with companies like Hybrid Racing Simulations or HRS, you know, we have dashes that show us information on fuel, you know, when we're coming for our next stop, if we want tyres, you know, windscreen tear-offs, all that type of stuff. So it's easy enough as a driver, if you have that type of equipment through companies like HRS, to be able to perform those tasks on the fly.
Yeah, it's that thing of motorsport where it does come into the thing of, you know, when you've got more money, things do become slightly easier for you. I know there are a couple of drivers out there just using things like the standard G27 steering wheel and just going with a lot of drivers use Crew Chief, which is a sort of AI sort of variant which you can sort of use voice commands for. But they're sort of not quite the top end methods. They're sort of using something that's not quite as good as some of the other teams out there, and that can make a big difference. And much like real motorsport, is when you do have a little bit of extra money to spend on equipment and tech, it can absolutely help you out. Things like of course, nowadays with Oculus Rift and VR becoming such a big staple in racing games and military simulators, where you have got that ability to look around you, look left and right, sort of like head tracking back in the day, but now you've actually got that proper vision almost fully enclosed. It can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I am currently, you know, I have the G27 set up with GTI springs in my pedals, but I'm currently waiting on a shipment from HRS with a full P2Z chassis from those guys and the full direct drive setup. And I've currently got 3 32-inch curve monitors sitting on my floor waiting for that cockpit to show up. So I chose to go triples over VR. I do wear glasses, and for purposes that are personal, I chose triples over VR. But yeah, VR can give you a whole different experience. So gaming has changed a lot and evolved over the years, coming from the Nintendo 64 that I still got in my cupboard all the way up to this top-end gaming PCs that we have today.
Well, yeah, back in the day when we were playing NASCAR games on the PC using our keyboard to steer, it's changed a lot since then, thankfully, and somewhat for the better. It is amazing just how technology has flown. I mean, you think back to those days with the N64, and myself, I was a PlayStation child, and my game of choice was F1 97, and I spent many a year actually on that one. Christmas Eve '97, I got that one, and I spent years playing that game, and there was no analog sticks or anything like that. It was just all buttons, left, right, things like that. The control was not that sort of. It wasn't in your hands. There was no analog sticks. There was no real movement. And nowadays, we've got G27 steering wheels as a baseline. I actually picked up my G27 second hand I actually got an absolute steal of a bargain. $150 for the G27 wheel and a PlayStation 3 with a whole heap of games, which was just an absolute stroke of luck. It did require a little bit of fixing here and there, but it's a thing. You've got some affordable options these days that you can actually get into sim racing, and you might not be 100% as competitive with just the basic options, but it is that sort of stepping stone to get you into a position where you can build for yourself and actually get better equipment, get into better positions, get better monitors. As you say, the curved monitors do make a difference. I work in optics myself, and yeah, it can make a big difference. But on the track, we've got some serious action down at the back of the grid, because we've got some serious fighting going on for the last spot of the chase, with Stephen Williams and Matthew Clark battling it out, trying to keep out of that position. Currently, Riley Curtis is down there with Daniel Stevens sitting right at the back in chase terms. Norman Clark behind him, Tristan Koch following up the rear. But those positions for that chase are starting to heat up as Skurlock does start to fall into the grasp of his teammate Stephen Williams, as well as Matthew Clark and Riley Curtis. So the battle for the chase is really quite hot at the moment. It's going to be a pretty heavy sort of battle as it comes on later in this race.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't seen a caution or anyone seriously go down pit road yet for tyres.
Yeah, it's been pretty caution free, which is always good to see. But I imagine drivers are going to be wanting to have a caution because these tyres are not going to be holding on very well, as we see Danson falling into the grasp of Martin now. And we've got Curtis coming into the pits now, so it should be interesting.
And when you're in Riley's position, that's a fair call to make, and I guess an easier one to make instead of when you're the guys up the battling for position.
Yeah, well, he's got a position where he can actually do that, and he might actually force some people to come in a bit earlier. As we see Micklemore coming in now. Josh Micklemore, the leader, is coming into the pits.
So we might start seeing them all slowly come in now. After that,
I think we're gonna start seeing people doing that now, and of course you could play the game here of at Talladega we saw Jason Martin and Josh Micklemore actually play of trying to stay out there for a caution and hoping one comes. With these, when people are actually going out on cold tyres, there is a chance that they can have a problem and spin it, as some people come in, as Joshua Carroll-Walden just comes in a bit too hot and manages to save the car there. Brilliant save by JCW. He just saved that from disaster, almost going into the pit wall. That would have been an absolute disastrous pit stop for him. But it looks like he managed to pull the car up and slow it down in time as well. But everybody's coming in now. They can't stay out there and can't let these guys get an undercut.
Yeah, so we'll see how powerful the undercut is here shortly, as Danson is still out there circulating around, which is a surprise. I thought he would have come in maybe this time around.
Yeah, I do wonder if Danson is maybe trying to hope for that caution. Mackenzie as well might well be just trying to stay out there a bit longer than some other people. Williams is sticking out there too with Kluwer. But if that caution doesn't come, these guys are gonna really lose some positions because those fresh tyres are making a huge difference. We've got Tristan Koch out there just being passed by one of the Riley Curtis design cars. Riley Curtis himself actually coming up on Tristan Koch just to unlap himself. And you can just see he's just driving straight past him with absolute ease. Those fresh tyres are making a difference, and I think Riley Curtis is going to make up a few spots from where he was sitting if it stays as it does. These guys now are just going to be praying for a caution because that's what they need. They're playing a risky game as Cluett has come into the pits now. I think a wise choice. Danson, of course, can risk it. He can just sit out there, and he doesn't have a championship to worry about at the moment. He is going to want to win, of course, and brag about being a vegan, but he's he can just play a bit of a different game to everybody else. But people that are in the chase, like Stephen Williams, is really taking the risk right now. He wasn't sitting fast enough really to be in for a chance of actually getting that position in the chase, as it looks like he's going to come into the pits now. Looks like he just can't hold on any longer. But what he's done now is he's also put himself slightly off kilter. He's just put himself onto a different strategy of everybody else. He's on a slightly different tyre to everybody else. He's going to have slightly fresher tyres now as he starts to come back through the field. So the guys that have stayed out there a bit longer are going to start having the tyres wear away a little bit. So we're looking at about 1.4 seconds a lap with new tyres over the old ones. So it is a huge difference for those tyres. It's making a big difference. So I think we're going to probably see people like McKenzie and Danson sticking out there a bit longer and just seeing if a caution does come. I think Daniel Stevens is just going to stick to it now and just hope that the caution does come his way, because he doesn't really have any other choice. And Stevens is coming to the pits now, so yeah, he just can't stick out there any longer, and it's really having to just nurse the car into that pit as well, because it just looks like an absolute handful. And Danson's coming as well as McKenzie, so everybody's come in now. We're going to really see how powerful this undercut is, because Mickelmore is going to fly past these guys, and I imagine we're going to see Danson losing probably about 5 to 10 seconds over Mickelmore at minimum. It's going to be a big position loss for him as Jason Martin just goes past, and it looks like Foster's just coming up to speed behind him. So Foster might just get Danson here, and it looks like he is going to get him. He's up to speed already. Danson's coming out on those cold tyres, and he's just dropped it back behind Foster. So he's dropped quite a few positions, and staying out on those old worn tyres has cost him about 8 seconds. About 8 seconds he's lost in those handful of laps. So it's put him in a bit of a risky position, but of course now he's on fresher tyres to everybody else, so he can go a bit longer. And he's also going to have nice, fresh, sticky tyres as everybody else's tyres are starting to get to that point where they're going to drop off again.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can stretch out the tyres in the first run, and then in the second run, you got more options, I guess, is a thing. But betting on a safety car is one of those things that is always hit or miss as a driver. You either bet on it or undercut, one of the two.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's a risky strategy, and look, sometimes risks pay off. You know, that's rolling the dice can sometimes play out in your favour, and it's played out in Riley Curtis's favour at the moment, as Michael Skurlock as well, because they have gained a fair few positions and some serious time over some of the other guys. Really, the person that's cost the most is Stephen Williams. It's really hurt him, as well as Daniel Stevens. They've really dropped off quite a bit. But of course, they're going to be on slightly fresher tyres now and trying to gain back those positions. As we do see Danson going down on Foster and getting past him.
Yeah. So dancing with those fresher tyres might have an advantage, and who knows, Edward might be saving tyres again because he was good and consistent through the whole run last stint. So we'll see what happens this stint.
Yeah, no, this is it. And of course, this means, the other thing it means is those guys that stayed out a bit longer can now go a bit longer into this run. So again, they've opened themselves up to a slightly different strategy now. So if there is that late caution, it's going to pay off for them. So it's the big thing with strategy is it either makes you look like a champ or a chump.
Yeah, you never want one to come out just after you've been in the pits.
No, and that's generally the thing that will happen to me, because generally luck is not my thing, so I roll extremely low on my luck skill. But these things can happen as we're getting some position changes now, as Riley Curtis is just starting to drop down a bit, and it looks like he's struggling for pace actually. I think Riley's actually gone into the wall.
Yeah, he's actually dropped down below the white line there, and he's coming into pits at the moment.
Yeah, just to kind of have a look back on Riley Curtis and just dropping back to see what's actually happened there. I think he's having a bit of contact or something's gone wrong for him, because yeah, he is dropping back at an enormous rate, and that's a disaster for Riley. Because
yeah, he had a big moment coming out of 3 and 4 and collected the wall. He had a bit of a slide and he's hit the white line and come up just before the start-finish line there and caught the wall.
That's an absolute disaster for Riley, and he's going to be kicking himself for that. A real shame, because he was sitting in a decent position. As now we see Danson starting to climb his way back up and getting that lost time back towards Martin and Micklemore now. He's starting to gain on those guys. So it's looking pretty good for that later call strategy at the moment. But it's a true disaster for Riley Curtis. That is an absolute pick for him, because he's been with such a great finish for that team at Talladega, with of course the team getting a 1-2-3, with Riley Curtis crossing the line with only 2 wheels on the ground. You know, they had a fantastic race last race, and it looks like it's all gone pear-shaped for them this time round.
Yeah, and that can be something, as a driver, you know, you go from all-time high to an all verse, or I don't know, mentally too.
And another guy to keep an eye on is Danny G. He's climbed 17 positions, as well as Josh Carroll-Walden, again getting a good race out of there. He started down in 10th and he's stuck into 6th now. But Danny G, starting at the back of the field, is just giving him a few different options to play with, and that's going to help him out a little bit. It's, of course, he's no longer in the chase, so he's just racing for the fun of it. But he's able to help out his teammates as well, and that's the main thing. He's going to be trying to help out Micklemore and Danson at the front, as Martin, as Martin just gets overtaken by Danson. Danson's just coming down on the inside and trying his best to push Martin way on the outside line, and it looks like he's going to get that position.
Yeah, so now something that you can think about for Riley, is he going to come back out after he gets those repairs and help out his teammate Edward, or is he going to drive and just stay out there? Because as a driver, you always got to finish a race, no matter what. You know, points are points at the end of the day.
Well, it's one of those things with the chase, of course. You sort of we saw last time out with Norman Clark. He had a shocker of a race after he got collected in that early crash, but he kept plugging away, and if there were a couple more laps in that race, he would have actually got past Skurlock and finished ahead of Skurlock and got himself into the next stage of the chase. So you've not got to give up, you've got to keep going, because there is a chance you can still get there. other people can have problems. It's not out of question for somebody to have an absolute shocker and be done. But unfortunately, I think Riley Curtis has retired. It looks like the car is absolutely done. So I think that's Riley out of the race, unfortunately.
The only time that rule doesn't exist is if your name's Lewis Hamilton, right?
Yeah, it's sort of. I think basically he was born with a leprechaun inserted in him, and has the luck of, well, the luckiest gift in the planet, really. He's a very talented guy as well, and this is the thing: is you do make your own luck sometimes, but when you people like Dance and Martin, it sort of sometimes luck does go their way, and it's a thing of, there is a lot of skill behind it, but they're also just extremely lucky as well sometimes, and it's so easy to be collected in somebody else's crash. Keeping out of those situations is important, but just keeping your head in there and just keeping plugging away is also, of course, another important thing. But yeah, I think the guy to really watch out for at the moment is Danny G. I think he's going to want to try and prove something tonight, because he's not racing for the championship anymore, and as long as he doesn't take out his teammates, he's free to race away, and it doesn't matter where they finish. As long as they finish ahead of Daniel Stevens, who is currently in last place and out of the chase. He is sort of just sitting behind Stephen Williams, so there's still a battle for the chase. We've got Clark, Williams and Stevens all in a line there, with about 10 seconds between that group of cars, and it could really make a difference, as Danson is coming up on the leader now. He's coming up on Micklemore, and he's going to start putting some pressure on him.
Yeah, as you're talking about the chase there before, it's an interesting situation as a driver. Sometimes making the chase is good, but also sometimes not making the chase is good too, because then you can just push as hard as you want as a driver and not have to worry about points or finishes. As we see Danson coming up close behind the leader here, sticking to his lower line.
Yeah, he does seem to be happy running that lower line. He seems to be very comfortable down there, just sort of keeping in that position, and he's just got that rhythm going for himself. And when a driver gets into a rhythm and can just set those laps in, as we see Micklemore just getting a little bit of a snap oversteer there, just slight movement on his wheel, and not lost in much time, but every little helps there. But yeah, he's just chipping away and just keeping Micklemore honest, as the two just almost drift around turn number 2 there. Very, very. The cars are looking a bit of a handful again. Those tyres are just starting to edge away from these guys, and they're just starting to slide a little bit on the track, and really having to keep that eye on the ball.
Yeah, quite definitely. Tyres are falling off, well, they haven't fallen off, they're probably plateauing out more so than anything, but being in that draft too is something as a driver. It unsettles both cars and gives you more speed than you're expecting and practiced for. If you haven't practiced with someone drafting around here before, or around any track, you can overdrive corners, you get that lift off the aerodynamics of the car, and if next minute you're sliding in places you don't expect to be sliding, or going in quicker to a corner, and you end up spinning or in the wall. So draft can be good and draft can be bad.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, and you get a bit of a side draft as well on these ovals, and that can catch you out as well, because it's a sort of single-seater racing or circuit racing. If you come from that sort of discipline, the draft is down a straight. You get sucked up behind somebody and you get the slipstream, and that's how your brain works for it. But when you come onto an oval, you get the side draft, and that can sometimes catch you out, because you're sort of side by side with somebody, and then all of a sudden you get that side draft and have a sudden boost of speed out of nowhere, and if you're not expecting it, that can really catch you out.
Yeah, and side drafting is also a way to push your opponent's car up the track or unsettle their car as well. I don't believe it's implemented in iRacing, but just not to the degree that it is in real life. Unfortunately, they've still got to work a few bugs out with it, so we'll see it hopefully evolve in the future a bit more.
Yeah, well, that is the thing. It's one of those things you're constantly working, constantly improving, and that's something that iRacing is doing. And there's always an update here and there that's getting new things implemented, and drafting and vehicle physics is definitely one of those areas where you can gain improvements in a game. And it's one of those things that's very hard to get in a game as well. I mean, one of the big advantages iRacing has is it doesn't have to worry about AI drivers, of course. So you don't have to worry about programming and all of that kerfuffle and mess. So it makes things a little bit easier in that case. But there are so many fine things, and in a simulation there are so many different numbers being crunched and put around. It's an incredible thing at the same time, as we were saying before, back in the days when we were running on, 32-bit, 62, as Danson comes down on Micklemore just trying to make that inside line work. And is he going to get it this time round? Doesn't look like it. But yeah, coming from those older systems, where you had, where you were driving a tiny block behind a block, it is so advanced these days, and Danson looks like he might have a bit of a better run this time. He's really putting the pressure on Micklemore, but as he keeps coming up underneath him, he's just losing a bit of time as the car just gets a bit unsettled.
Yeah, as you were saying, iRacing's always working on new stuff, and I know in the last build they were going to release the damage model, the Cup cars, but they decided just to release it for the Skip Barber to see how people like it, and also just to work on the damage model a bit more for these cars for next year, to have a full release and make it a little bit more improved for the drivers out here, because as you see, drivers banging the wall and that out here at the moment doesn't do as much as it does in real life, so we'll see a bit more of that next year, hopefully.
Yes, and it's one of those things that's ever improving, and that's the thing with online these days. It does make things very, very interesting.
And you were talking about the AI racing, and I know iRacing is looking at implementing that later on to help fill spots in races that aren't filled by humans. So we'll see how they implement that and choose to use that towards the drivers and their service. Hopefully they implement it correctly and it all goes well for them.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things you have to do sometimes, and I think, when you have some races where there are a little bit less turnout in a field, it can make things a bit difficult. As Danson again, he's just trying to get that inside line working, and he's got a bit further up this time. Looks like Danson might have it, but no, not quite in front enough. He's just got to get that extra tenth off the corner, and he's going to push up there. But it's one of the struggles in the random servers when you're actually trying to improve your driver status and get your license set up. Because that's something I've had to do myself. Is I've had to go through the rookie series and endure that pain and misery. But you sometimes get races and there's only 2 or 3 other guys racing with you, and of course then it doesn't get counted as an official race. So it's a good thing and a bad thing having that sort of AI implementation. It would be good if it can get implemented correctly and if it works, but it's of course getting everything to work.
Yeah, it'd be good if they can implement it correctly, and for those series, they don't have the bigger outs, but you still have paid, $14 US for a car, and I think it's $11 or $12 US for a track, whatever it may be, so you've put the money down, you want to race that series, but unfortunately the turnout isn't there. Hopefully they can fill those spots with artificial intelligence or AI.
Yes, so we've got this battle going on, and Josh Micklemore has been out there a fair bit longer. He's been out there for about 8 laps more than Danson. He pitted about 8 laps before Danson pitted, so he's got a lighter car at the moment. He's got less fuel in there, of course, which is going to be helping him. But his tyres are going to be looking a bit like they're going to feel like runny eggs underneath him, and it's never a good feeling to be running on tyres that feel like a runny egg. So he's going to have to be looking at pitting soon as well. These guys are going to have to think about another green flag pit stop in the relative future, because, well, they're not going to make it to the end as it stands. So it's all working back now from the finish. You're going to have to work back, and if it remains green, which it looks like it might do, getting a good pit stop now can be pivotal for the rest of the race. So it's going to be an interesting little battle as we go on here, but Danson does hold the advantage for sure.
Yeah, so we just hit lap 85 out of 133, so do you try and drive it out to that 90 to 100 lap mark and then have a really good run 33 laps, or do you pit now, or sooner I should say, and have a more consistent run throughout the last stint is the question.
Well, a guy I expect to probably do that is possibly somebody like Foster or Danny G. Danny G, I think, will probably be one of the earlier pitters to come in. I think he's going to try and roll the dice a little bit. But Foster's just sitting out there, and he's not going to want to take any risks. He's just cruising around. The car's looking very sort of good at the moment. I'll try not to put the commentator's curse on him. Danson's dropped a lot of time though in this last lap. He has just fallen right off the back of Micklemore, just as I took my eye off the battle for the lead there. But maybe somebody like Carol Walden or Foster could make a big difference in sort of deciding when these guys pit, because if they come in, they could cause these guys to think about coming in a bit sooner, because there's only between Foster and the front there's 10 seconds. Danny G's got 17 seconds to make up on the leaders, so he's fallen off a fair bit. But that pit stop could make a difference. As we see Skurlock just coming out of the pits now, he's coming for a fresh set of tyres, and he's rolling that dice a little bit himself. And Danny G's coming into the pits, so as kind of expected there from myself, I'll give myself some credit there and say I actually knew something for a change. But Danny G's coming in for that slightly earlier pit stop. Yeah, Danny G's coming in, and looks like Micklemore's coming as well. So
Edwards
the leaders are coming.
Too.
So we've got those pit stops happening.
Yeah, and Edward Foster's just came in too. Sorry.
Yeah, so these guys are all going to come in, and that's going to negate the advantage that they could have gotten from those from that undercut. But it's going to help people that are staying out there, like Martin and Matt Danson, as Martin does indeed pit now. But at the moment, you've got to say Matt Danson's looking possibly like the strongest guy out there. If we get a caution in the near future, he's going to be smiling from ear to ear. But he's also going to have fresh tyres come later in the race, and we've seen that can make a big difference. He lost around about, what was it, about 8 to 10 seconds in those pit stops, but he gained that all up within a couple of laps, just because that tyre drop-off from about 10 laps onwards is so huge.
Yeah, the tyre drop-off has been really huge here tonight, so we'll see how everyone goes with fresh rubber now and see the field sort itself out as we continue to roll through the pit stop sequence here.
Yeah, and as it all unfolds, this is going to be where the winners and losers come out into the battle. So it looks like Riley's come back on track, so he's coming back out on track. He's 21 laps down from the guys that are sort of sitting at the back of the field, but he can hope for somebody crashing out and possibly handing him a few places back. I think that's what he's going to be hoping for.
I think what he's done here is he's come out in front of Edward to hopefully give him some help with the draft, maybe.
Yes, because those two are sort of in that position, but it looks like he's just dropping down and Foster's just going straight past him, so not too much of a team play there, but maybe Riley's going to sit behind him and just offer him some help if he needs it in the near future. It's sort of not much has happened. Stephen Williams has finally come in for his stop. He made up a few good positions, but he's going to drop way down again. But it looks like he might be in a better position than Daniel Stevens at the moment, who is currently sitting in the worst spot that can be, that one spot where you don't want to be, where you're going to fall out of the chase.
Yeah, no one ever wants to be that guy that falls out of the chase, but at the end of the night, someone has to be it.
Just listening to Danson's car as he goes through the corner, it just sounds like he was just lifting and coasting a little bit. So it looks like he might be trying to save a bit of fuel, but he's coming into the pits now. He's just dropping down into the lane, and in he comes. Looks like everything went well there. But yeah, I think he was just trying to eke out a little bit more fuel mileage on that car. Just go a little bit longer.
Sure, the pit stop too, maybe. Who knows?
Well, that's it. You have to take a little bit less fuel to get to the end of the race where we sit now. Every second counts. That's the thing. It does help a little bit. But the big thing is he's going to be on nice, fresh tyres when he comes back out there. Not as big an advantage as he had last time, but I think he had to make that stop where he did, because he might have been in a position where he wouldn't have been able to get that time towards the end of the race. So he's going to come out sitting behind, I think, Martin, and I think he'll be ahead of Foster when he finally gets back out on track. So he's just going to be sitting behind Jason Martin now. So it's just going to be those Mitch Motorsport boys in front of him, and he's going to be smelling blood in the water because he's on tyres that are now 7 laps younger than Micklemore and 6 laps younger than Martin. So he should have some relatively good times coming out of him now. So this is where the Mitch Motorsport guys are going to have to work together and try and sort of keep Danson back a bit if they want to get this win. But of course there is that thing of how hard do they want to fight, because it's sort of a lose-lose situation. If you get yourself crashed in this race and fall out of the chase, there's not much point in getting that victory. It's that sort of it's that tricky situation in NASCAR where you have that chase situation, and it does mix things up a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those interesting places to be in, where if these boys weren't in the chase, they could get out.
Yeah, and you can see a few people that sort of aren't in that chase have made some big advantages in this race. Joshua Carroll-Walden and Danny G are just sort of really the big gainers. Danny G especially because he started way from the back. But JCW, as ever, has just climbed his way up a few positions from his qualifying spot and been very consistent. He has that sort of Dave Douglas-esque ability of managing to just qualify around the top 10, just outside the top 10, and usually get those top 10 finishes. And just always be very consistent in that sort of that speed. Not always up at the front, but within that sort of top 5, top 10 sort of area. Sitting in that position where you can absolutely go for a win. It'll be interesting to see if he tries anything different, to see if anything does happen. And of course, a late caution here could just throw the cat amongst the pigeons, because everybody's going to duck into the pits then and grab new tyres, and that could really change things up.
Yeah, it could be anyone's race then, because they're going to get fresh tyres, all bunched up and have enough fuel for the end of the race, which I don't believe anyone's going to have trouble with fuel here, but we'll see.
No, only 33 laps to go now, and I'm pretty sure everybody is going to be fine for fuel. They're not going to have too much trouble at all, really, as Matt Danson just set a blistering lap time, a 30.523, the fastest lap of the race there, actually, for Mr. Danson. He nailed his pit stop there as well. Just his entry to the pit lane was just absolutely fantastic, and that's the thing with Danson. He's frustratingly good sometimes, and yeah, he's very much on it tonight. He's in that sort of, he's on form. But down at the back, we've still got the battle going on between Clowett, Williams, and Stevens. Stevens has fallen back a little bit, and he's still sitting in that sort of, in the spot that nobody wants to be in. As Matt Danson does get past Jason Martin, pretty dominant. Sorry, Daniel Stevens is in the last spot. Sorry, Stephen Williams. Sorry, getting my Stevens and Stevens mixed up. Sorry about that. Well, it wouldn't be a broadcast without me messing up somewhere along the line. So as long as we're keeping consistency, that's the main thing. Matt Danson put a fantastic move on Martin there just before, but with that sort of position, you've got Clowett, Williams, and Scullop all very close to each other now, and it could be, it's very close between these guys. So it's still up for grabs. There's still a chance of some late heartbreak coming in for some of these guys for the chase, and you're only a mistake away from bidding it and falling out of this race.
Yeah, it's like they say in football, every grade is just one injury away from being on the sideline.
Yeah, that's it. It just it's that thing. It just takes a momentary lapse in concentration, and these things can happen. It is easy enough to do, unfortunately. So Skurlock's just falling back. Yeah, so Skurlock's just fallen back. So it's now the Illusion Boys fighting between themselves. So you've got Williams and Skurlock now battling for that sort of last place in the championship. So it's a tricky thing when you're battling with teammates. You really don't want to be fighting with your own team, but it looks like that's what's happening.
No, we just saw the other week what happens if you fight between your own teammates sometimes. At Bathurst, when the two Mustangs took each other out by accident,
yes.
Obviously.
It's look, there's only one rule in motorsport, and that is don't take your teammate out, and sometimes that doesn't work out so well. When you're racing each other, it can easily happen, unfortunately.
But as someone who was spotted in crew chief before, what are you going to do? When your boys are racing each other, you can't really give out too much order. If one's faster than the other, you can say it, let him by, but if they're racing for a position, or in this case a chase position, what are you supposed to do?
Yes, it is tricky, and we saw last time at Talladega as well. Illusion they are struggling a bit, and it does look like Skurlock is losing time to Williams as well. He's just dropping back into the claws of his teammate there. Skurlock only just scraped through past Purnell. And Williams just goes down the inside of Skurlock now. So Skurlock has fallen down into that last position and is in that sort of undesirable spot. But we've seen with Illusion, they've really been struggling these last few races, and it's not something we see so often from those guys. They're usually pretty much on pace and up there, but it just shows how hard everybody is racing at the moment. They are just pushing each other just to go that little bit faster, and just really pushing everybody to achieve a little bit greater as Danson starts catching on Mickelmore.
Yeah, Danson's doing real well out there tonight. I think he's got the why he's on track.
It's hard to bet against Danson, in all honesty. It's hard to bet against him, and he's looking good. He's looking pretty much set for this for this championship. It would be a brave man to bet against him. But of course, anything can happen in that last race as well. As we've seen this season, things can happen out of the blue. It only takes a moment of bad luck and you're in trouble. And it can absolutely go horribly for some people. As Danson's just sticking to that lower line, and it looks like Micklemore is just going to fall back a little bit, and these two are going to start battling now.
Yeah, dancing right up there on the bumper now, so he's still taking that slightly lower line, not as aggressively low as we've seen him earlier on, but maybe he's trying to look after those tyres a bit more.
Yeah, so it's pretty much set now for the dropout because, of course, Mirko Dortnack didn't make it tonight, and he was the final puzzle piece in the jigsaw. So it's pretty much set now that Riley Curtis is going to join Dave Douglas and Mirko Dortnack falling out of this race. So I'm terribly sorry, Mirko. Completely forgot that you were in the chase. One of those things, oversights sometimes. But Danson is just coming down now. He's putting a hard push on Micklemore, and these two are going to be battling it out. And they've got nothing to lose now, really, because they're pretty much safe because they've hit that magical lap number where it doesn't really matter. But I think Danson's really going to push hard for this victory. But of course, Micklemore is not going to want to give it up.
Not without a fight. No driver wants to give up first, a win, a podium, or any position out there on track. So as Jansen gets really low on the white line, has a good run out of this corner.
Yeah, he's got a slightly good exit, but he's just dropped down a bit. Just dropping down that little bit further onto that white line has just cost him a little bit of his overall speed, and that's put him down a little bit.
It'll be interesting to see how lap traffic affects these two out here while they're battling too, so hopefully it doesn't get in the road or affect them too much, but we'll see. Yes,
well, lap traffic can also be a big help or a big hindrance in oval racing. Of course, unlike circuit racing, you're not obliged to jump out of the way, and you can make it as difficult or as easy as you want. But one of the middle finger racing guys there just making a very courteous gesture towards the leaders there and just letting them get through. Generally, the drivers are very well behaved in this series and will be very polite to each other and not push too hard, as Danson puts another big try onto Micklemore and is just really pushing him up on that high line, trying to squeeze him out as Micklemore decisively cuts down on the nose of Danson. Really good defensive driving here from Micklemore as well. These two are really going at it. Of course, there is 7 laps difference between these two's tyres of fuel. So Micklemore is on the slightly older set of tyres, but he's got a little bit less, possibly a little bit less fuel in the tank. But I imagine Danson probably took the magical number of fuel as well, so they're probably pretty much equal. So it could be the advantage Danson here, but Micklemore is not going to give up this fight. It's been a while since we've seen Josh on top step of the podium, and I think he's pretty hungry for a win. And with there being no penalty, I guess, for failing to finish this race now, as it's locked in for the chase, he can really push hard and defend it as much as he wants against Danson, and this is what we want to see. Really putting the pressure on Danson here, making it very hard for him to pass.
Yeah, and I think Josh is just getting that bit better drive off the top line there compared to Danson. That's the thing that's keeping it out there in front at the moment.
Yeah, and it's just helping him a huge bit. I think Josh is just that little bit happier running that slightly higher outside line, and I think that's just working as a slightly faster line on the exit. Of course, the entry is working much better on that slightly tighter line. But you can just see with the exit of the corners as they go across the sort of tri-oval section, you can see that Micklemore has just got a bit more speed on the straights just because he's getting a little bit better drive off the final corners. while Danson is just a bit faster through the corners themselves. Just letting you know, Riley Curtis has pulled off and just retired the car quietly there. So it's already been set, but unfortunately Riley Curtis will be the guy to drop out of this round, along with Mirko Dortnak and of course Dave Douglas. So from a fantastic victory and a 1-2-3 at Talladega for the team, to a bit of heartbreak tonight. Edward Foster's managed to keep the car in there in 4th place, and he's locked himself in for the next round of the chase, of course. But from having 3 cars in the chase to only having 1 car, that's a bit of a disaster for them. But I guess one team's bad luck is another team's good luck, because it has allowed Illusion to keep Williams and Skurlock into the chase. So Illusion not having the best run of fortune at the moment, but they've got 2 cars in there, and if they show up in force at the next race, they could possibly do some good stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from there. But no point thinking about the future, because we've got a great race for the lead going on.
Yeah, there's a fair few drivers out here having a good night tonight that may make a difference later on in the last 2 races of this chase here. So we'll see what happens in the next 2 races.
Yes, and of course, if you're out of the chase, you might not be able to win the championship, but you can still win a race. And there are plenty of drivers out there that are going to be very hungry to do that. There are a fair few drivers that haven't got that taste of victory in the Pinnacle, the Cup Series, and they're very hungry to get that win. So we'll be interested to see who goes for that, because sometimes these chase races can be the perfect opportunity for you to take an advantage, and it's almost like a shark smelling blood in the water, because some people are just going to be racing a little bit more cautiously than normal just for that championship's sake, and sometimes it can give you a good position for a possible victory. But just looking back, possibly it looks like Danson's trying to get that outside line now, as he gets a little bit tail happy on the corner just towards the start finish line, but he's got probably the closest he has for a fair few laps on Micklemore this time round, sticking right to the rear bumper of him.
Yeah, and Danson will start feeling the clock here shortly, with it being lap 125. But he's doing real well to stick to the bumper down the back straight here and as he goes underneath Josh. But I think Josh will have a good drive out, but not Danson got him. Oh,
Danson's got him, but that better drive on the exit of the corner has just helped Micklemore again. He's just managed to keep that lead as he crosses the start-finish line, and if he can do that in 9 laps' time, I think, then he'll be sitting pretty. Well, less than 9 laps actually. If he can manage to pull that off on the final lap, then he's going to be sitting pretty. But Danson's going to be trying to think of the best way to get past now, because I think Danson's trying to work out his way past Micklemore, trying to break his defences down and trying to work out the best way to attack. And these two are both very fair drivers. They're very clean. They're very good racers, and you're going to see some close racing between these guys. But they both are very hungry for this victory.
Oh, yellow's coming out, so late yellow.
A late caution there as Tristan Koch has gone into the wall. Just having a look back to see what happened there. He was having.
I saw a bit of smoke in front of the leaders when we were watching the leaders there. Next minute, the caution come out, so we had to see what happened.
Yeah, so I'm just dropping back to have a little bit of a look, and Koch has just gone into the back of Mackenzie, and both of those have just gone into the back straight. It just looks like Koch just caught the back end of Mackenzie, and both of them have crashed out. Mackenzie's got some quite heavy damage to his car, and that's dropped him down a few positions. Mackenzie was running quite well up in about 7th position, so that's not going to be good for him. What are we going to see now from the leaders? Are they going to jump into the pit lane? I think they don't have a choice. They're going to have to jump into the pits, because they need to get those fresh tyres on. Mackenzie's,
I don't know if he's celebrating in the pit lane there or what he's doing. I
just
think,
getting a bit of frustration out
yeah.
possibly, but we'll keep with the leaders. It just looks like possibly Koch just made a slight mistake and just went into the back of Mackenzie. It's a bit hard to tell on that one. It's just one of those racing incidents, but this has brought out a new.
I think
new
Josh
pace
is going
for
to
this
be
race.
very upset here. He had to actually dodge the car doing donuts in the pit lane there, and he lost position on Danson, having to do that because he had to go on the grass, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is. I think Mackenzie might be looking at a penalty for that, because that's cost Micklemore the position on the pits. So yeah, a real unfortunate thing there for Micklemore. He's going to be absolutely fuming about that. Yeah, that's a bit of a daft decision there by
But
Mackenzie.
someone who made a really good jump in the pits there is Jason Martin up in the lead now.
Yeah, Jason Martin, great pit stop from him, and that's actually going to help Micklemore a bit. The two teammates are going to have a bit of a working out here, and I imagine those two are going to be looking at trying to do something. Yeah, Jason Martin's had a good jump here, but this has brought in some other players as well. You've got Foster down there in 5th at the moment. Stephen Williams has stayed out. We've only got 3 laps to go, so are we going to get a
green white checkered to finish, maybe,
checker,
which is something iRacing just recently implemented too, so always improving the service.
We saw that come in this year. This season's seen a lot of interesting developments in that. We've seen things like the weather changes. We've seen the green white checker come in this season. We've seen a lot of development come into iRacing, and it has changed some of the season for sure. It's changed a fair few races, but this could be a really good chance for Williams to get a good finish here with Stephen Williams just staying out there. Sure, he's going to lose a fair few positions on this restart, just because those tyres are going to be a little bit beaten away. But if he only has to make it for 1 lap, it could be a good position for him. He could possibly make up, from sitting pretty much in last place, he could possibly make it up a little bit further. So, interesting to see what happens here.
Yeah, and we don't know if Williams is aware of the chase situation at the moment, so he could have made that call given the chase situation that he was in. I think he'll know, being with Scarlock as well. So Scarlock's sort of gone in and got some fresh boots on there and things like that. Though I think the Illusion boys have worked it out, because with Dortnack being in the team as well, they know that they're going to have worked out that they're pretty much through for this round. So I think Williams is just going to try and roll the dice here and try and throw in a late joker into this pack of cards and try and get a possible victory out of this. It's a possibility. We've seen stranger things happen. Yeah, I think we're looking at going green this time by, if I'm not mistaken. I think the lights are out in the pace car. Yeah, as it ducks down pit lane.
And away we go. Back under green, and you just see Williams just struggling to get the power down there. And the gamble probably didn't pay off too much, but he was pretty much going to finish last. And, he might gain up a few positions here. But Jason Martin's managed to get into the lead now, and that's great for him. But also another guy that's come into this battle is Danny G. He's coming up there, and Edward Foster as well. Foster has just climbed his way up there. He's just bullied his way up into those positions. So we're looking at a good race here. It could be an absolute close finish as we come across the line. The white flag is out. We're here on the last lap, and much like Talladega last time out. It's going to be a photo finish, I think. As Micklemore just loses the tail a little bit. He's just dropped way back. Disaster for Micklemore. He's lost a fair bit of time. Foster's got a decent run on Danson here. As they come through the last set of corners, the final time. Foster's sitting up a bit high, Danson low. Joshua Carroll-Walden's going to try his luck. Foster dives down to the inside as Jason Martin takes the victory. Matt Danson in second. Matt Danson second.
No, Edward Foster second.
Foster got second place there. Joshua Carroll-Walden got third. Wow.
What a great drive by Foster in that last bit.
Danson got a penalty possibly or something because, he just dropped right out of there. Trying to work out what happened there because, that's just brought those guys up completely there. Danny G, a fantastic drive from last to fourth place. That was an absolute terrific drive from him. But Jason Martin getting that victory, clasping that victory from nowhere. Just wondering really what happened to Danson, because I think he might have...
On the restart we believe Matt Danson might have passed before the start. So we'll see, we might talk to him after the race here and find out what happened.
Yeah, it looks like he passed Williams just before the restart, and just because he lost that traction as he was doing that restart, Williams losing that traction, I think that's that cost him.
And that's a very hard call when you have a driver in front of you, always, that loses traction or doesn't get the start that you expect, bogs down, whatever it may be. And
yes,
you should always go the high line, but there's a chance that you still manage to pass them and then get that penalty.
Yeah, it was look, it's one of those things, but it is a hard set rule, and that's the thing with that is, again, for the second race in a row, Danson's almost been robbed of victory, just in that the last dash across the line almost. A real unfortunate thing for Danson, but a fantastic drive for Jason Martin getting that victory, clinching the victory from nowhere. Foster getting up into second. Joshua Carroll-Walden getting third place from 10th. Brilliant drive from JCW, and also Danny G. Fantastic job for him, getting up into fourth place, starting last, finishing fourth. Matthew Cluett managed to get fifth. Skurlock finished sixth in the end. He was sitting way at the back of the pack as that caution came out, and he's managed to get up to sixth place. Micklemore dropped down to seventh place. He's going to be absolutely fuming about that. Stephen Williams managed to finish in eighth place. So, although he had those tyres that were a little bit buggered, he did manage to get a few positions up. Matt Danson's dropped down to ninth because of that penalty. Daniel Stevens finished 10th. 11th was Norman Clark. Darren McKenzie 12th. Tristan Koch 13th. Riley Curtis unfortunately dropping out of the chase 14th. 15th was Ryan Jones early on in the race, an unfortunate incident knocking him out. Jake Maloney as well, an early incident taking him out of the race as well. And Michael Latterer as well, a very early casualty to the race. I think on the first couple of laps he had that issue on the start-finish line. But this means that we've lost Marco Dortanack and, of course, Dave Douglas from the chase, as well as Riley Curtis. So, for the chase, we have Jason Martin, Edward Foster, Matthew Cluett, Michael Skurlock, Josh Micklemore, Stephen Williams, and I think that's it. I think that's everybody, yes. So,
and Danson, obviously.
Danson, of course, but he's a given. So next race, we've got an interesting one coming up as we'll lose 3 more people. But, well, as we've gone through that, let us grab the winner of the race, Mr. Jason Martin. Jason Martin, Carl Wither here for Performance E Streaming. How are you going?
Not bad, mate. I just stole that one, no?
You did, absolutely. That was that was an absolute robbery there. You completely took it out of nowhere. A bit of a surprise victory for yourself, obviously. It was looking like third place was sealed up for yourself until that late caution came out. And unfortunately, with Micklemore as well, with the unfortunate incident in the pit lane, that dropped him down a little bit. And on that restart, Matt Danson getting the black flag for passing Williams on the restart has assured you of a victory. Congratulations, though.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I hate that track. I hardly ever race there. I just can't run that top line. But I don't know what Josh was doing, but he could run that top line all day and pull away. I had nothing for him.
Yeah, Josh looked like he had a pretty controlling race tonight. He was pretty strong out there, but you weren't looking too bad yourself. You weren't far off the pace. Obviously, it was a tricky track to run. I'm imagining tyre wear was a big issue for you guys.
No, not the tyre wear wasn't too bad. It just started getting real loose on exit, and if you don't nail that top line right, it gets real loose on exit, and yeah, that was causing me trouble all night.
Yeah, the cars were not looking easy to drive out there. Um, but getting this win obviously is a great thing, but this also moves you through to next round into the chase as well. So I imagine that was your main goal for tonight.
Yeah, that's been my main goal for the last couple of races, just surviving and hope for a top 5 or something. But yeah, just want to survive and stay out of trouble.
And obviously, surviving through Dega I think that was possibly one of the hardest bits. But I think Kansas pulled a few, bit of a bit of a tricky one tonight as well because it is a tricky track to run. So again, congratulations on getting through. Jono, anything you'd like to ask Jason tonight?
All I'm going to ask is who gets it done for you every week?
Sorry, what was that?
Who gets it done out here for you every week and gets the car to the track?
I just got to thank the Mitch Motorsports boys for that.
Yes, the super team is coming through pretty well for you guys tonight. Danny G had a great showing here tonight, getting up to 4th place in the end from 17th. And look, we knew that you guys were going to be strong this season, and you really have knocked it out of the park. So, congratulations again, Jason. Anyone else you'd like to give a shout out to before we head on to the next person?
I got to thank the guys at ANZCAR for the wonderful league, Bob King for the wonderful cars, and of course Performance eStreaming for putting on this broadcast for everyone to enjoy every single race.
You're more than welcome. Thanks so much, Jason. Well, look, I hope I will see you in the booth again in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure there is a chance of it happening as well. You're always keen to be up there.
Cheers, mate. Hopefully I don't have to steal it, though.
Jason Martin there, just stealing victory, as in his own words. He really did just steal that from nowhere. Might grab down second place man Edward Foster, and I'll let you lead off with the questions, Jono.
Okay. Hey Edward, Jonathan from Performance eStreaming here.
Hey Jonathan, Carl, how you going?
How'd you find that race? You had a good race there, come second. Must be happy, second 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. I mean, it's second two cup races in a row and a first in between in the Xfinity series, so it's been all right. But yeah, I mean, it was sort of one of those where I was sort of struggling in the first stint to find a line that was working. I just couldn't get turns 3 and 4 right. The car was really loose through there after you got a few laps on the tyres, even as much as 5 laps on the tyres. It was really skatey coming through 4. And it took me really until the end of the first stint to find a line that was going to work for us. And at that point, I found I had reasonably good pace. You know, I was pulling away from guys and all the rest of it. I just, it's all well and good to, you know, because I was about 8 seconds ahead of, I think, Josh Carroll Walden and Danny G. And but of course, you know, I was about 10 seconds behind the guys in front. So if you want an illustration of how good the quality is, right at the pointy end of the field, there you have it. So I was kind of just driving around in my own space, you know, no one in front, no one behind. And then when that caution came out at the end, I was like, oh, I don't believe it. Like, I could not believe we'd had a caution thrown after all those laps. And then it was just a really hectic race to the end. You saw how it went, 2 laps to go, and everyone was going crazy and so on. But really, really happy, obviously, to come away with P2.
Yeah, we saw some definitely crazy driving there in the end, and there was unfortunately a bit of an incident that put Josh down there from the lead in pit lane. But I noticed you, like you said, I was watching you on board throughout the last bit of the first stint there, and I noticed that you weren't sliding around and you were a bit more stable compared to a lot of the other drivers. Were you just taking more care, you reckon, of your tyres, or you found your groove, like you said?
I think I just found my groove. I think that, possibly there were guys sort of behind us that were racing, and I was fortunate enough to be in clean air out my own. So it made it a little bit easy from that perspective. And then, of course, we had that great run at the end that was got the heart rate up a little bit as well.
Yeah, it definitely gave us something to talk about in the booth. So, anything you'd like to say, Edward, about the race here tonight?
Not particularly, I suppose. I mean, commiserations to Josh, obviously, because I think he had that race absolutely sewn up before we saw that stupidity in the pits. I don't know what that was about, but anyway, it is what it is, and I'm sure the stewards will deal with it. I just wonder what might have been if I'd been able to get a clear run at Jason. Of course, Danson got that black flag off the start, going down the inside of, I think it was Williams who stayed out on the old tyres, and so Danson's got that penalty, and yet he was still sort of there throwing blocks and all the rest of it, trying to keep me behind. So I don't really understand why, but I'll talk to him about it anyway. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, I can't be unhappy, can I? I was running around in sort of P4 and I ended up P2. So and most important thing, through to the next round of the chase. So that's what matters.
Yeah, we see you made it through the next round of the chase, but unfortunately, a member of your team didn't tonight, Riley. So that's unfortunate on his behalf.
And
But at
yeah,
least one of you
well.
guys made it through.
Yeah, I mean, that's the aim, of course, was to get both of us through. Dave couldn't be here tonight. We always knew that Dave wasn't going to be able to get here tonight. So it was really down to the two of us to try and make it through. And unfortunately, I think he picked up some damage fairly early on. And after that, his pace was just shot. So it's unfortunate. But hey, there's one of us still here. One of us still in there and fighting. So, we're just going to have to fly the RCD flag now right to the end.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some team strategy out there in the next 2 weeks.
I don't know how much there's going to be. I mean, it's one of those things where you know what stock car races are like. Cautions can come at any time. You never know how the race is going to play out. So trying to come up with some sort of predetermined strategy is usually fairly fruitless. We're just going to have to play it by ear, and of course, there's the sporting fairness aspect as well. We're not going to get teammates to do anything overly aggressive or anything like that to try and disadvantage other teams. I mean, everybody watching wants to see a straight fight to the end, and that's what they deserve to see, and that's what there will be.
Yeah, you'd probably use them for a bit of drafting and that, but besides that, like you said, a race is a race. You can't predetermine anything. It's cautions everywhere, crashes, things happen.
Exactly.
But who would you like to thank, and who gets it done for you every week out here?
Well, of course, there's the teammates. So Dave, who couldn't be here tonight, sadly, and Riley, put up as much of a fight as he possibly could. And all the other guys in the team, Ryan, Matt, Matthew Raymond, and Matt Hunter, who I know is there on the cameras as well. So it's just all those guys have been great to work with over the past. I think I've been with this team a couple of years now. So they've been really good to work with during that time, and hopefully we can finish out strong.
Yeah, it'd be good to see you finish out strong. We heard that earlier in the stream we were talking about your stats that you came second last year. Do you think that you are better at this year?
I don't know. Ask Matt Danson. He's seems to be. Apart from tonight when Joshy had the pace on him, but most weeks he comes in, he's head and shoulders ahead of everyone. So, and of course he's got that free pass through to Homestead as well. I mean, if he didn't have that, he would have been out of luck tonight. But so I think everyone's going to be chasing him. I mean, if we get through to the final four in Homestead, anything can happen, obviously. But you'd have to say that Danson's favourite and I would definitely be considered a dark horse in that particular arrangement.
Yeah, we always like a dark horse though. So, any last words, I guess, Edward?
No, just thanks very much for the broadcast. You guys always do an excellent job. They've been looking particularly good lately, and thanks to my fellow admins Danny G and Roger for helping me put this series on.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Edward Foster. Okay, I'm just going to grab down quickly. I want to chat to Danny G quickly before we wrap up, but I also just want to chat to JCW, so I'm grabbing down for a quick chat before I grab Danny G. Joshua Carroll Walden, how's it going? A bit of a long time no see, but congratulations on a surprise third place there.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Yeah, that was quite a finish, really. Yeah, basically, last 10, 15 laps, I was basically, just settling down, securing P5, and then the caution comes out, and yeah, man, when there's only a handful of laps to go, you just send it, and yeah, I've got to be happy with that.
Yeah, that late caution really threw a cat amongst the pigeons, and also Danson's slight mistake just passing Williams just on the restart, so just getting that penalty as well. It really helped out, but you had a very decent race. You qualified down there in 10th, and you were in that sort of top 5 pace pretty much all night as well. So you've got to be pretty happy about that, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, basically, I've done quite a bit of running here over the past week or so. So, like, I knew what the race would be like, and how to pass and how to conserve tires and all that stuff. And basically, I just, saw a little bit of almost match day inexperience, so to say, from a few guys in front. So I just started picking them off, and yeah, eventually just made my way up to P5, and yeah, there's not much else to say really. Yeah, first 100, 130 laps was just keeping it clean, keeping it fast, and then yeah, just as I said earlier, just sending it at the end. So yeah, I'm ecstatic with P3 tonight. It's like heading into this, I wasn't even thinking about third. I was thinking like 5th to 10th at best.
Well, congratulations, and there's 2 races still in the ANZCAR Cup series. Do you think we got a chance of seeing you on the top step of the podium for those next 2 races?
Look, it's going to be difficult, but as the chase, comes to a close, drivers going to become more desperate, and it's going to become a lot more heated. I'm not that bad at Texas and Phoenix. Not Phoenix. Sorry, Homestead, Miami. Texas, I think, could be pretty interesting with these high downforce cars. Could be a very different race to what we've seen in the past at Texas. So yeah, I think for me to finish on the top step, 1 or 2 things need to go my way, but because it is the chase and because Texas is a complete unknown with this package, it's not entirely out of the question.
Well, I wish you luck, and hopefully we will see that top step of the podium come for you in the Cup Series some stage soon, because yeah, you've had a fantastic season and relatively good consistency and some decent finishes this year. So just before you go, anyone you'd like to give a shout out for tonight?
Yeah, shout out to you you and Jonathan in the broadcast booth, and Matt Hunter for running the stream. Shout out to the ANZCAR admins as well, Danny G, Edward, Rog, fantastic league as always, and yeah, for most of the races tonight for a very clean 130 lap race.
Thanks so much, JCW. We will hopefully see you again at some stage in the near future.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, and I'm just going to grab down Danny G for just a couple of quick words before we head off. Danny G, congratulations on 4th place.
Yeah, cheers, fellas. Thank you.
Yeah, so unfortunately, well, I'd say unfortunately, I imagine you had a good time last time out at Bathurst, but unfortunately that knocked you out of the chase situation. But you've come back pretty strong here tonight from 17th to 4th.
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing to get knocked out of the chase because I couldn't make it. But yeah, 17th to 4th, I really hadn't been behind the wheel for over a month. Yeah, pretty much like 2 races ago or whatever, and jumped in for a couple of practice laps and thought, I better not qualify. Don't want to ruin anyone's sort of night. And yeah, managed to get up to 4th.
Yeah, the greenness wasn't affecting you too much tonight. You had some serious pace, and there were a few stages there where it looked like you were sort of fighting it out for that sort of 5th to 4th place position. You really climbed up there well, and there was a great battle between yourself and JCW. So yeah, just congratulations on that. I just wanted to get you up here quickly because it's been a while since we've seen you, and just commiserate you on the loss of the chase, but also, you know, I'm sure you had fun at Bathurst.
Yeah, for sure I did. Yeah, no, all good, thanks. Thanks, fellas.
All right, thanks so much, Danny G, and yeah, thanks for giving us some good action out there tonight. You put on a bloody good show out there tonight. So, anyone you'd like to give a shout out for tonight?
Yeah, pretty much the team, and just a bit disappointed for Josh because I thought, yeah, we all thought he sort of should have had a run, but something happened there on pit lane. But yeah, congratulations to Jason and them two move on to the next round, and we'll see how they go there.
Yeah, well, obviously that's the one thing for you guys. I mean, it was a big disappointment for Josh because, you know, he was looking very strong, and he pretty much had that victory close enough. I mean, that battle with Danson was heating up at the end there, but it's a big step for you guys. You're a new team this season, and you've got 2 cars in the chase, going pretty well for you.
Yeah, definitely is. I mean, they've them two have had speed, Josh and Jason, all year, and yeah, I think, you know, with a bit of luck, you know, hopefully they'll get it at Homestead.
Don't downplay yourself too much because you did make it into the chase yourself, of course, with a victory earlier on this season. So, you know, you've done pretty well. All 3 of you guys have got some relatively good pace, and obviously the sort of super team that we expected to dominate has dominated a little bit this season.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, we've all pretty much run, yeah, very well. I had a couple of like mishaps early in the season that sort of ruined things, but yeah, I sort of came back pretty decent. And the other two, they've been solid, like top 5, top 3 sort of cars pretty much all year.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Danny. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out for tonight?
Yeah, just the Mitch Motorsport boys and BK Designs. That's pretty much it. ANZCAR, you guys, yeah, everyone.
Of course, you've got to thank us because otherwise I won't let you leave the booth. So thanks so much, Danny. Hopefully we'll see you in here again before the end of the season. Good luck for the last 2 races. Do you expect to be there for both of those?
Yes, I will be.
Wonderful. Well, best of luck. Hopefully we might see you in the booth, and hopefully you can pick up a win before the season's out.
Too easy, fellas. Thank you.
Well, Jono, that was that last few laps of that race was a bit of a chaotic one, and there's definitely going to be a few words and a few sour faces, and a few people that are going to be very disappointed. But there's also going to be a few people that are pretty happy with that finish, I imagine.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some conversation over that pit lane incident there, and I'm sure Josh is very upset and probably a bit distraught about it at the moment, but hopefully the stewards, you know, look after that situation and might see a couple races set out by that driver or a series set out, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens in that situation. I mean, look, the big thing for Josh, though, is he's made it through in the chase, and that's the important thing, I guess, as much as I'm sure he would have loved to get a victory. At least the Mitch Motorsports team did actually manage to get that victory as well. But he's through to the next stage, Texas, and, well, it's going to be a shootout at Texas. You know, the old Mexican standoff is going to happen. We've got 6 drivers left, and only 3 of them are going to get through to the final stage of the... Well, so only... Wait, I've done a mess right there. Yeah, only 3 of them are going to get through the final stage, and we know Danson is in there. So yeah, it's going to be close, and we're going to see some serious racing coming on. So yeah, any last words for us tonight, Johnny?
I guess just watch out for a few of the underlying dark horses, like Edward said, he's a bit of a dark horse, but he's been on a really good run lately. As he said, 2 second places here in the Cup Series and a first place in the Xfinity Series. So he could be a potential dark horse in any of these Mitch Motorsport guys that we've had in the booth here tonight.
Yeah, and don't discount Skurlock. Williams as well as in there too. And the Illusion cars, they've not been having the best run this season, but those guys can pull it together when they need to. So we could see a surprise coming out from Illusion, and it's going to be an interesting one to see who get in the final. So with that, I'm gonna start wrapping us up. So a big thank you, as always, to Matt Hunter on the cams and for doing all the graphics and all of that thing. And we will see you all again in 2 weeks' time for Texas. Aside from myself and from Jono, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next race.